Herzlich willkommen in einem neuen Video von Projekt Akustik. Mein Name ist Torge Schöneberg. Heute habe ich mir Besuch aus England eingeladen. Der Patrick Mitchell ist heute bei uns von Chord Company und mit dem werde ich mich heute mal ein bisschen über die Firma Chord und Kabel unterhalten. Ich freue mich sehr. Patrick Mitchell, could you tell us a little about your background and how long you have been with Chord Company?
Certainly. I've worked with Chord Company for just coming up to 7 years. First 4 years of that was looking after UK retailers with a little bit of export experience as well. I was lucky enough to do some export shows in Scandinavia particularly, and as my role progressed within Chord Company, I was lucky enough to be offered the export role full-time, and now I'm in export for 3 years and very much enjoying it. Prior to working for Chord Company, I've been in and around the hi-fi business and music business for all my working life. So I started off as a 17, 18-year-old selling records when we used to have record shops, or a lot more record shops than we do now. I progressed into hi-fi after a couple of years in the record shops, and really enjoyed that. Alongside my sort of working life, I've played in bands, particularly as a younger guy. I was sort of playing in bands in the hope that that would be my future. So I didn't quite make it to be a rock star, but now I'm happy with my role in Chord Company.
A big chord star, I think.
The big chord star, yeah, absolutely.
What sets Chord Company apart from other manufacturer? What are the difference to other manufacturer?
I think what Chord Company sort of focus on is obviously performance. You know, we are, as I said from my own history, a lot of us are musicians. We're all music fans, so it all comes from the music itself. You know, that's really what we all start from. But what I think is good with Chord Company particularly is we have a consistency throughout our ranges. So we start at an attainable level with C-Series, and we can take that customer right up to our high-end products at Chord Music. So we literally start from, say, 70, 80 euros, depending on the length, right up to 4,000, 5,000 euros plus. And we have sort of steps along the way. And as we go up our ranges, the cost doubles. So you've got clearly defined differences between our ranges. And I think that's really important because it's easy then for the customer to expect a difference when they go up our ranges, and then look at their cable as a loom. So if as their system progresses, as they go through their sort of hi-fi enthusiastic journey, you know, as we all do, they can stick with Chord Company, and that has boded very, very well for us. We've had that story said to us for many times, and that's a great thing. So we have good defined ranges, but what changes within those ranges is it just gets better. The character of all of our cables is very similar, but we just get better as we go through the ranges. And again, I think that's important. So in the broadest term, if you like a Clearway cable, you'll really like an Epic signature and what have you. And that's really what we aim to do.
We spoke both to customers. One of the most asked questions is, with what cable should I use first? So should I use power cables, or should I use interconnect cables or speaker cable? What's the best cable the customer could choose in your opinion?
That's such a good question, because obviously with cables there's lots of cables with any system. So I generally would advise customers to look at speaker cables first. Now that would go against, say, going source first, which we talk about a lot in other areas of the hi-fi industry. But there's a couple of reasons why I would say look at your speaker cables first. We really want the customer to have a great experience with Chord Company. And if it's your first venture into Chord Company, speaker cables are a really good place to start because it benefits the whole system. So whatever source that you're listening to has to go through your speaker cables. So therefore, your whole system is upgraded by that one one change, that one upgrade. And then by having a good experience, you can address the rest of your system. I'm very, very keen to suggest to customers that don't buy lots of stuff and then upgrade all the time. Try and get to a good quality, so the best quality you can, and then bring more into that system. Your system will benefit far, far, far more for it. So I'd certainly say speaker cables is a great place to start. And if you go back to the other end of the cable, other end of the system, I say power cables is another great place to start. But at point one, I would say speaker cables is a good bang for your buck, as we would say.
Most of the customers ask, they call us and say, hey, I'm happy with my hi-fi system, but the high frequency are too much, they're too powerful. Which cable should I use to reduce the high frequency? So some customers use cables as equalizer in their systems. What do you think about such methods of tuning the system?
Yeah, again, it's a question I used to get quite a lot when I was in retail, as I was in hi-fi retail for over 20 years. And it would be sort of, can I tune my system with cables? I don't really think that's the best solution. I don't think cables will ultimately make you like a system you fundamentally don't like. So it depends on the extreme of the question. What cables will do, on upgrading your cables, is it will make your system sound better, but it won't necessarily change the character. You'll get more music. So it could be that the brightness in a system isn't necessarily as a direct result of a bad speaker choice. It could be that if you've got not so good cables, that you're not getting the other frequencies in, so it gives the appearance of being bright. So I would always try cables as a way to improve your system, but not necessarily as a tuning as such. I know that's a bit of a paradox explanation, but I think it's important to stress that it will make your system better, but it's not necessarily a tuning method.
In the past, we have B-wire cables in the Chord program. If I look at the actual program, we see no B-wire cables. Why moved Chord away from B-wiring cables?
We did originally have Epic as a full core, as a bi-wireable cable. And we do have bi-wireable cable in our installation range, but that's obviously a separate entity to really what we're talking about in terms of dedicated two-channel hi-fi. The real result, or real answer, is that we get a better result with running one really good speaker cable and then maybe using links at the speaker side rather than running two lengths of bi-wiring. We also found that because we're such big advocates of shielding, that bi-wiring and shielding does make the speaker cable quite big, quite unwieldy. So there's obviously a practical element as well. But certainly, in terms of the real reason is you're better to have one really good set of speaker cables rather than dilute to a bi-wire. But speaker links are really good upgrade as well. So I'd use that in combination with your speaker cables.
You spoke about shield.
Yes.
Very special on Chord is the most manufacturer we use shield connected to an electric potential. Chord does do this not. It's only a shield that is not connected. So what's the idea behind this shield technology?
Shielding is a fundamental part of Chord Company. It's one of the major things we talk about a lot, and we're shielding basically from external noise, and that's particularly with speaker cables, but interconnects exactly the same. So how we effectively shield is we use it as a sort of Faraday cage. So it's a physical shield. We're not connected to the earth at either side. Now there is certainly good theories behind that would be a good move, but what we sort of found is that by keeping the actual shielding simple And as I say, as a Faraday cage, and not adding extra connections actually was more benefit to trying to sort of earth or ground the shield. So it's always the balance between what you add by actually adding extra connections, or how you actually ground it, versus the benefit of the shield. So sort of risk versus reward almost. And we found that keeping the shielding simple but using lots of it is by far the better method, and that's really worked for us.
Chord and Name, a big relationship between these two brands. Also, the founding of Chord is connected to Name. There was an event where Chord was founded on a Name retailer meeting. Can you tell us how the name Chord is based on, and what the story behind this connection relationship between these two brands is?
Basically, the Name Audio was our first customer, so a very, very important relationship for us. It's what really got us sort of started. It rose back all the way to the mid 80s. In 1985, so 40 years ago nearly, was when we actually started as a company. Well before my time at Chord Company, and our founder, a lady called Sally Gibb, was married to Paul Stevenson, who at the time was export sales manager for Name Audio. And to cut a sort of long story short, they were exporting Name amplifiers into the US. And in the US, they didn't have a history of DIN connectors like they do in Europe. And as you know, Name, particularly at that point, were very, very big on DIN connectors. So they needed basically a cable to go DIN to RCA, to phono. I think it was actually, now I've actually a tape, I think it needed four phonos, 4 RCAs. And Sally picked up the opportunity and literally started making cables on kitchen table, soldering herself, supplied the cables with they were including it in with the Name amplifier. The Name amplifier got a great review, and the cable was given a nod as, oh, by the way, it comes with this great cable. And Sally then started talking to UK retailers as well, look, we make these great cables, will work well with Name, and of course, that then expanded into other brands. So that's literally how Chord Company started. It literally is connected, if you pardon the pun, to Name Audio. And whilst we don't make cables directly for Name Audio, the Name customer has been very, very kind to us, because we've been able to develop our ranges around Name and other brands as well. But what lends with Name to us is because they're different. You know, the snake cables are unique. So for us as a cable specialist, it gave us an opportunity to really sort of get into that, you know, and provide an opportunity for Name customers to upgrade their system. And that started way back then and continues now. We have Burndy cables, Burndy X and Burndy T. They're relatively new, obviously, and so that Name sort of relationship has continued and has been very kind to us over the years, and I like to think very kind to the customers as well. So that's the thing.
Do you use Name components in your showrooms to demonstrate your Chord Company cables, or are there other brands installed?
We do have Name products. We are very lucky. We have great relationships with other manufacturers, so we can always beg, steal and borrow if we want something specifically, and we do that regularly. In fact, we did that recently with DCS. We wanted to try some clocking cables and make sure that we had that opportunity, and we did some tests using, we were very kindly offered to us to test those. So we had that facility. So it depends really what we're testing, but one of our staple systems is a Name 200 series, new classic series that we use that a lot. B&W Bowers and Wilkins speakers. We use that a lot. It's a great sounding system, so we can hear the differences. And also, our demo room is used a lot for retailers, the retailers to come and visit us and distributors to come and visit us. So it's important for them to have a reference point that they're familiar with. So that kind of works. So we don't just have name. We use Moon. We use Chord Electronics. We're very lucky. But certainly that is a part of what we have in our armory.
If you look through your program, and if you can give us 3 recommendations for maybe for an entry level, what would you choose for the mid-range level and for the high-end level? Do you have you have a clear series structure in your product?
Essentially, we've got 7 different levels, and they double as they go up in up the ranges. So the price is double, sorry, as they go up in ranges. We've got quite a nice defined difference there anyway. But it's a good point you raise. If somebody said, oh, we just want to do a highlights of chord, I would probably say maybe start at Clearway as a good entry point. Obviously, we've got C series below, but I would always try and say, look, go that bit higher if you can, because your system will benefit for us. Equally, I would probably say a similar side about Epic. Our Epic range has been with us for a long time. I used to sell it in retail, and there's always been a big bang for your buck, as we say. A big payback for investing there. And then if we're going into the higher level, then SRMT is again a different world again. But as I say, that's picking highlights out of a already defined seven stage series of ranges. So that's probably what I would use as a highlight if I was doing a quick explanation.
When you did come home from your work, what component do you listen to?
I have a much loved LP12 turntable. It's back from the 70s. It's actually it's a real I wouldn't quite say original, but it can't be far after I managed to pick up secondhand years and years ago. So that's the kind of source of my system. As I say, that's what if I'm properly listening, I love vinyl, so that would be my first choice. At the other end, I have some Proact D28 speakers that I've had them for ages. Floor standers. And the actual amplifier is actually quite a modest amplifier. It's a Rotel 10 series that again I've had for some years. But it's a great little system. I'm obviously very lucky that I use fantastic systems all around the world. So listening to great hi-fi systems is part of my job, which is I must admit a lucky position to be in. But I still any spare time I get, I try and earmark a bit of Sunday evening to go through some vinyl, mainly sort of classic albums, as in your Bob Dylan, Blood on the Tracks. Those are kind of the albums I listen to a lot when I have that time. I love a big Bowie fan. I love everything David Bowie's done. Maybe not so much some of the 80s stuff, but certainly the 70s stuff I really enjoy. And I guess like a lot of music fans, for me it started listening to the Beatles. I used to listen to my mum's Beatles records all the time, and she used to let me play the singles because I was a kid, so I'd always scratch them. She said, "Oh, you play the singles, that's fine." So of course, whenever she went out, I was straight onto the albums and managed to scratch most of those as well. So that's where my music sort of passion began, and that continues. I mean, I love some of the more modern artists as well, and I've just been listening to the new album by Orlando Weeks, and I absolutely really enjoy it. But generally what happens is and Paul Weller's new album, again, is fantastic. But generally what I find myself doing, I'll listen to that for maybe sort of 6 months or so, and then maybe another one. But then I'll always revert back to putting Ziggy Stardust on, or putting, as I say, Blood on the Tracks. I just listened to this last weekend for the first time for a while, and just reminded how great it realize how fantastic those songs are.
Do you have actually a favorite track or album you would prefer if you come home and say, oh yeah, that's a big music record. I like to love to listen to it. Is there one piece, one diamond in the music?
I tend to listen to a few. I remember my time in retail, people used to come in at this point with CDs and they'd test their hi-fi with all the same sort of CDs, go home and never listen to those again. So I would always think that for me it's a good thing to have a spread. So I love the everything tracks that we were playing earlier on. I just think that's a great test of a system. So all of that kind of thing, I will revert back to a few, but it's not just one. It's quite a few tracks that I would use as more of a testing sort of tracks.
Many thanks, Patrick, for coming the long way to us to make the interview. Yeah, happy to have you here. You have uns told us many today about the cables and the Chord Company. Und euch vielen Dank fürs Zuschauen. Folgt uns gerne auf unseren Social-Media-Kanälen. Wir freuen uns, euch wieder begrüßen zu dürfen. Bis zum nächsten Mal. Auf Wiedersehen.